welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today I'm joined by regular co-host Mr.
Andy Conduit Turner. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hello, Andy. I'm good. I'm good. I hope you're well. And today we're joined by a very, very special returning guest. Daniel Richardson is the producer of Terabytes, the Evolution of Horror Gaming documentary series. Welcome back to the show, Dan. Hello.
Hello, and very glad to be here.
You're welcome. You're
And
welcome
the
to be here.
perfect guest for this film choice, I think, and all the news this week. Like
Oh my
it's
Yes,
God,
all
yeah.
everything's fallen into
it's,
our lap.
it's just all lined up. It's all lined up for it.
It happens that way sometimes. Oh my God. Horror gaming news coming out of our ears this week. Uh yeah, it's been a little while, Dan, since you last been on the show. Over a year, if I double checked. We watched House of the Dead.
We're
Hopefully,
watching a significantly better film this time, so
yeah,
that's
a
good.
significantly better film, but I guess still a House of the Dead film, isn't
That
it?
is true.
Yeah,
That is technically true. It is a house, and it is full of the dead.
It's absolutely chock a block with the dead. They're coming out of the rafters everywhere. Um,
the dead in this house have slightly more complex needs than in the other one, though.
What do
Incredibly
you mean?
complex
Are
needs.
you saying Movie Ball didn't write out fully fleshed developed characters?
Yeah, am I right in thinking? Don't want to jump ahead with the horror news. Is there going to be like another House of the Dead film? Did I read that somewhere?
Yes, that's Paul W.S. Anderson, the guy who did the original Resident Evil films, is jumping on that.
I wonder who we could possibly cast in that. Any thoughts?
Well, I do know that he is exceptionally fond of, both personally and professionally, his wife.
He definitely is, exactly. Yeah. Do we need that? Yeah, let's say.
I think. Do you know what? For I think, and this isn't me being biased because I just cast him in another documentary,
Yeah.
but I actually think Paul W.S. Anderson is a good fit for that, because his sort of style is very much especially like if you look back at the Resident Evil films, like they've got some merits in that kind of like campy B movie sort of stuff. And I think House of the Dead is a better fit for that style than the Resident Evil franchise. Because the
Hmm.
Resident Evil franchise, Paul W.S. Anderson's one, for all of its flaws, it has, it has its fans. And I think if you take that kind of grungy, over the top action attitude to a House of the Dead film, like I think
Hmm.
you'll fare a lot better. So I actually think it could be a good match. We'll see. We'll see. It's a
I'm looking
tricky
forward.
one to get the video game adaptation.
I'll turn up. I'll turn up for that one, I think, because
Oh yeah.
I often say like the original Resident Evil, whatever you think about where the series went, profitable, absolutely. So from a business perspective, it's a really good bet. And actually, there are some interesting things in those first couple. Resident Evil 1, I maintain, is a few quotable lines and slightly better lighting away from being the aliens of its time. Put that on the DVD box, Paul.
I think it's aged really well. Like every time I've gone back to it, I feel like it. And also it's done something quite interesting, which is it's added some iconic Resident Evil things that I think were exclusive to the games. Like when you reference certain things, it was like you were referencing the games and moments and characters. But there are a couple of things from that first film that I think have stuck with us and almost like been replicated in the games going forwards. Like I guess like the what's she called, the Red Queen type thing. I think they replicated
Mm.
that in some form in
Yeah.
Resident Evil. Also the music, I feel like the score. Um, remind me who did the score? It was an Italian composer, wouldn't it? But some pieces of that music have almost become the Resident Evil music, despite the fact that Resident Evil has amazing scores, the games. Certain pieces of music I see all over social media and all within the horoscope as well. So it's done some things right, I think, hasn't it? Which is good. So
Yeah.
we will get into more Resident Evil because there is more Resident Evil news, but we'll talk about Terabytes first, Dan, because of course the last time you were on the show was before Terabytes was finished, before it was out, and now you're at the very end of the journey. First of all, congratulations, because me and Andy have both
Thank you
seen
very
it and
much.
we've enjoyed it, and we've mentioned it lots and lots of times on the show, how much we enjoyed it. How has the final part of this journey been, and how's the reception to it been?
Yeah, I mean it's been incredible. Like, so I think I'm not certain, but I know when I last spoke to you, obviously with it being a while ago, I think we might have just been entering like pre-production. I'm not sure if we'd validated the idea yet, or if we're trying to validate the idea. But this has sort of been like my baby for about 2 years now. The first year of its development was just sort of establishing a rapport with Creative EC, the studio that we eventually did the documentary with, and writing up like pitch docs and budget spreadsheets and production costs and all the kind of not as fun stuff when it comes to well, pitching's really fun, but all of the kind of nitty gritties that you have to kind of get out of the way to get somebody to give you the go ahead and green light the idea. And I think at the time we spoke, I'd just been given the green light, or I was about to just get the green light. It might have been just before. So to go from that, when we literally had nothing, to now I have my first. It's not the first stuff I've worked on with Creative EC, but it's my first series, like my first one that I've created with and like produced. It feels pretty spectacular to kind of look at, not a toot our own horn, but like a real like hall of fame of like horror heroes from across multiple mediums like film and video games, and see created by Daniel Richardson come in front of that. And I think the end result has been incredible. Obviously not just because of me. I cannot take credit for Richard, our director and writer's excellent work in structuring it and putting this real like narrative together. Me and him talked a lot about how it should, like, what themes we should touch on. We talked obviously about who we should talk to and who to cast, and we kind of navigated a lot of the general hurdles of like, what are we actually trying to do with this doc together. But at one point, the baton kind of got passed to him, and he just scripted out from all the interviews me and him acquired just this really comprehensive, just incredibly well crafted and well put together narrative that tells essentially the whole history of a multiple decade long medium in a way that doesn't feel to me like it's, oh, remember this game, remember this game, remember this game. Like, it feels like there's this ideas explored, and like, what are the uses and gratifications of horror? Why do people play horror? Who are the people behind horror? What are they putting of themselves in it? We had some like really like profound and like genuinely beautiful interviews that, like, at times, like, I was glassy-eyed interviewing these people, like the amount of vulnerability they shared with us. And if you've seen the documentary, you'll know exactly what I mean. Like, there's a segment particularly on Silent Hill 2 where Jeremy Blaustein gets very emotional. There's Jasper Byrne, who created Lone Survivor, talks in the Indies episode about how much of his own personal grief he put into that game, and how that basically powered him through making the game. There's interviews that have tears shed in them. Like, it's a piece of work I'm really, really proud of. And then I've got to commend the other two core members of my team, and that is Steve Dreaman, who composed this incredible soundtrack that not only feels like a cohesive whole, but also really ties into the core concepts of each episode. The survival horror episode, the music sounds like the kind of stuff you'd hear in survival horror games. It sounds like the work of like Akira Yamaoka and Resident Evil save rooms. And then you go to like episode 3, which is completely different tone, FMV. It's kind of campy, it's kind of cheesy, and like the music reflects that, but never in a way that it feels at odds with itself. It still feels like a complete whole. And the excellent theme song as we go down the opening hallway for the intro credits, we worked so hard on getting that right. If you guys saw the preview episode, you might remember that it was a completely different theme to what's ended up being in the final product. And that's just because we really went back to the drawing board like multiple times on that and really refined it and got it right. And Steve just, was so excellent at bouncing ideas back and forth. And one of the absolute heroes of this whole thing was our editor, Connor, who, bless him, has worked so hard on this, because this was an absolute mountain of work. We're talking like we have 51 interviews. Most of these interviews run like 2 to 3 hours long.
Yeah, hundreds of hours of footage.
Yeah, we had literally hundreds of hours of footage. And like between, him and Richard condensing it to like a 6 hour. We were only supposed to actually go for 5 hours, but we had to like beg and be like, hey, can we go to 6?
One more, please.
We want to tell the story properly, and we don't want to like leave things out, and like there's so much important stuff here. And luckily I was able to negotiate that with the higher ups, and we got the series we wanted to make, which not everybody gets to do that when they're making something like this. So that was a really good thing. And Connor just did so much work, and I just think the editing, especially on the final product, is just exceptional. Like it's all come together amazingly, and I couldn't be more proud of it, and I couldn't be more proud of the team.
That's so cool. And it's so wonderful to have heard that story, like Ben interviewing you when you were just getting going, then a little update when you were maybe midway through when you did House of the Dead together, and then to see those preview episodes, then the finished products coming out and seeing it come together. It's so great. I would never, Dan, Sophie's choice you and get you to choose a favorite bit an episode, but I need to share from my side that I think the FMV episode in particular, those games are so formative to my video game playing experience growing up, and like large parts of my childhood. So to see you have interviews with the absolute legends. If you don't know this name, you're too young, go to bed. But people like Roberta Williams talking to you about like games like Phantasmagoria, and even like alluding to things like the King's Quest games that came before them and so on. It is such an alien concept to a lot of games that you see now, though, where people have no idea even what type of game this is. But if you're struggling for other projects, I would beg and plead with you to get onto those folks at Bitmap Books and do as a whole FMV coffee table book on them anytime you're free.
Well, I'm not. I can't say anything right now. But just not what you've described, but maybe watch the space. We're already talking about the next documentary, and it's not quite what you're describing, but I think you might be interested in it
if
you're into things from that time frame. Assuming, like the things can change, nothing's set in stone, but something we're exploring at the moment is probably going to very much interest you.
I think you've earned a lot of credibility, Dan. To be honest, send us a link when you want money. We'll get behind you.
That's right, exactly what I love to hear.
Exactly. The other big question, because I don't want to save this for when we're wrapping up and people are jumping off in case an ad roll is going to come. If I was a discerning shopper right now and I was thinking this sounds like a good documentary, where do I get my hands on a copy? What can people do?
Oh, just go straight to terabytesdoc.com. That's terror as in fear. So this full spelling is TerrorBytesDoc.com. And you can buy a copy and get instant access to it right now.
And I would recommend it so much so, I would even say, tell you what, we won't go anywhere. Pause a minute. Go and do that. Get yourself a copy.
Get yourself involved.
And then
my God.
It's up to you whether you watch all 6 hours before you come back to this or not. That's up to you. But once you've bought it, that's fine.
That's your choice. Of course, I will put the correct links in the show notes so that everybody can easily access that and go and purchase the documentary series, because you should. You really should. Okay, so we've got some horror news. We've got some gaming news to get into. But before we do that, let's just quickly take a visit to Mount Rush Horror. That's right, Mount Rush Horror, where we ask you, Dan, what your 4 faces would potentially be on a horror Mount Rushmore. Are they all gaming related? Are they potentially anything else? Who would you pick for your Mount Rush Horror?
For me, we talked about it a little bit before we started the show. my favorite license property, medium story, anything of all time is Silent Hill 2. So, and I suppose the most ubiquitous imagery from Silent Hill 2 is, of course, Pyramid Head, as seen here in his lovely, lovely remake form, which was pleasantly, surprisingly very good. Didn't see that one coming.
Very
Holy
good.
hell, am I glad that happened. Yeah, I was, I'll put my hands up. I'll say I was wrong. I was the biggest hater going into that game. I absolutely thought it was going to be terrible. I just didn't want them to touch something that I found so sacred. And it wasn't even that Bloober team were making it. I know they've got kind of a reputation. I was literally just like, just leave that alone, please.
Yeah.
If you're going to re-release it, just re-release it exactly as it is. I don't want anyone to touch it. And I'm glad to say that I was a moron and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was incredible.
It feels good to be wrong sometimes, right?
Oh, sometimes it feels great to be wrong, yeah. The original is still the one that holds its place in my heart. But yeah, the remake was very good, and as a result, either way, I think Pyramid Head is my boy. I mean, so much so, I've got this just sitting on my desk here, a little Lego Pyramid Head my friend got me.
Lego fella.
Yeah, so he's got to be
yes,
on my
good choice.
Mount Rushmore. After that, I mean, possibly giving a little bit away with my background pictures here, but certainly some of these icons, if I had to pick from the classic slashers, it's very hard for me to decide between Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Leatherface. Leatherface has Texas Chainsaw Massacre is probably my favorite slasher film, or at least the one I think is the best, if that makes sense. Like, it's maybe not my favorite because I also really love Nightmare on Elm Street 3, but I don't think it's a better film than Texas Chainsaw. What I will say is, if I'm going to have a slasher on there, I'm going to pick Freddy. Not because I like any of his films the most, but I like the most of his films, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, after that first one, I like the second one. Then it kind of goes a bit loopy. Halloween, I love the original. I love the 2018 reboot. Outside of that, kind of mixed on it. But Nightmare on Elm Street, I like 1, 2, 3, and New Nightmare, and parts of 4. So Freddy's probably the most consistent slasher for me.
Such a terrifying concept as well, right?
Yeah, it's just a great concept. Yeah, great concept. I don't know if you know how the kind of concept originally came to be. I've got this whole retrospective on the series on my YouTube channel, but Wes Craven read a story about people. I believe I'm bringing this up from memory, so apologies if I get some details wrong. If you watch my video, it'll be right though. But I believe Wes Craven read this really horrifying news story about these people who were convinced that they were going to die if they fell asleep, and I believe they actually did die. I believe there was actually this strange illness where it was if these people fell asleep, they died, and they found in these poor unfortunate souls wardrobes that they'd been keeping loads of canned coffee and stuff to just keep themselves awake, and that kind of idea of this desperation to keep yourself awake because you're scared of what happens when you fall asleep was sort of the inspiration for Nightmare on Elm Street. And then I've got to have 2 more horror icons. Oh, it's so
difficult. It is a difficult one.
You put us on the spot. I wish you'd gave us the homework with
I should have done that.
at least 3 months warning, because I get deep on this stuff. I am obsessed with this kind of stuff.
In many ways, it's a kindness, though, Dan. If you had this much time, you would have changed it. You would have thought about it and agonized as much. You'd have just changed it 50 times.
I'd have booklets considering, and there'd be a conspiracy board. I'd be looking tying red string together.
If you like Charlie Day and that gif.
Absolutely. Always Sunny, full on. Okay. Give us 2 seconds. I I don't want to say something that I'm going to be annoyed at later. What is? Do you know what? Can I be generic but with intent and say zombie? Because
Yes.
I feel like a zombie kind of covers so much of horror in terms of, you've got like all of Romero's works. You've also got a big thing of like, in my preferred world, of Resident Evil obviously started. It's kind of moved away from zombies. It's gone on, but like they were always at the root of the series. They appear in so much like media. Obviously, House of the Dead was incredible. So I'm going to say zombie, just a zombie that represents all of zombiedom. And then I need a fourth figure. Oh God, it's so hard because I'm like
a hero, a heroic character. Sometimes I try and steer people in that direction if they're struggling.
I mean, we could throw Ash on there, from the Evil Dead series.
That's a good choice.
He's kind of
Always
like
a good choice.
Iconic in the hero world. Is he my favorite though? I'm gonna say Ash, but throughout this podcast, I may just cut in with random names and be like, "Get him on."
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
Listeners will note that when Ben does get round to making the artwork for this, he's got the template. He's been working on it when he did ours. If Dan comes up with a revision, you can have you might get a revised version.
That's fine. You can do that. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
There we go.
So what's in the news, Ben?
All solid choices there, definitely. Okay, let's jump into horror news and cover this before we get into Sweet Home. The big news, of course, Resident Evil 9, Resident Evil Requiem. A trailer was revealed very recently at the Summer Game Fest, and the game will arrive. I'm always the kind of person when people go, "Oh, Resident Evil 9 is going to be revealed at this show." I pretty much always go, "Nah, no, it's not happening. Not yet. Not yet. It's going to be a little while yet." And after watching the State of Play PlayStation, I was even more convinced. But then when I realized Summer Game Fest was coming up, I was thinking, well, maybe. And I watched for a decent while before I went, you know what, I'm going to go to bed. Before I woke up to a text from Andy saying something about Resident Evil 9. And I was like, I cannot believe. Because it was a Saturday as well, so I'd slept in. So I'd missed everything. I've missed everyone going crazy online for my favorite game series. But yeah, I've watched this. Oh, obviously, I've watched the trailer multiple times. Watched all of the breakdown videos and everything. How is everybody feeling though? Pretty positive.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that we finally got it. I feel like I have said for the past, I don't know, every State of Play for the past like 3-4 years, every showcase, every Game Awards, every Summer Games Fest, being like, this is the one, and it finally was the one.
It was.
We always knew, obviously, that it was going to exist. Like, there is no reality in which Resident Evil 9 does not happen. But even still, it's nice to see, like, it now exists in an official capacity and to have kind of a glimpse at it. And it's interesting as well with the trailer because there's so much ambiguity still around it as to what it's actually going to be this time. We don't know if it's going to be first person or is it going to be third person, like the remakes, obviously 7 and 8, both first person games. There's rumors kind of circulating around that it might even be open world in some capacity.
Wow.
People pointing to characters having like backpacks on and like giving it like a traveling, surviving motif and the apocalyptic state of Raccoon City. Like maybe we're exploring through the ruins of the city in like an open world capacity. We don't know. We know it seems to connect to Resident Evil Outbreak of all things. Didn't see that coming. Very cool.
No, absolutely.
Very cool for them to acknowledge that game after, not for a decade or so. But yeah, in what way? I don't know. Does that mean, I'm spitballing here, but does that mean it's going to have like online co-op capabilities like Outbreak was kind of built around? I don't know. It's really hard to say, but all of the speculation is exciting and it's cool that we have a trailer and character names and elements to give us something to speculate off of.
A open world thing was something I'd never given a thought. Also, I'd never given a thought to returning to Raccoon City after the nuclear blast. That never crossed my mind. But now you see it and you see those visuals and you see like the RPD, like the dilapidated RPD. It's an amazing idea, and the fact I kind of watched the trailer and I kind of think, is there some sort of like residual supernatural thing going on there? I know Resident Evil didn't start off as being entirely supernatural, but I think they've introduced those elements occasionally as time's gone on, maybe from Resident Evil 7 onwards. But I'm super excited. Looks great. I understand that maybe the character of Grace could be a red herring, and one of the classic Resident Evil um, protagonists could potentially still be the lead character.
I'm
But
seeing
I
big
like,
rumors, people reporting as if it's fact that she is our trailer character is the daughter of character some people remember from Resident Evil Outbreak and Leon, and people like I've seen some
yeah, yeah.
reporting
Leon's a
of
dad.
like, and it's definitely the end of Leon's story and things like that. It's just, come on, this isn't Star Wars. I don't need all the characters to be related. Can we just a guy? There's just a new person that's in it. And as I shared with you, Ben, I'm not being a cold waterman because, I have
That's
a
fine.
great deal of faith in the Capcom team to deliver another absolutely belting Resident Evil experience. Like, only arguably one miss so far from the mainline numbered games. Um, but the one thing I did have to point out was that while viruses have evolved a lot in the interceding years since 1998 and Raccoon City was destroyed, office work in this universe has not. You would think of all the universes to understand the benefits of remote working and not being in confined spaces with people, one that is predominantly based on viral infection would be the first to enable Teams meetings. But no, our lady is there surrounded by printed out paper files, and her boss calls her into the office and gives her an inappropriate work assignment. I know it's the hotel where your mom was killed, but I do need an analyst
Get
on
yourself
this
there on
job.
your own. Yeah.
Get yourself there on your own. Yeah, I'm incredibly excited for
Hmm.
this new game. I think we're getting another trailer with some gameplay in the not too distant future, right? It's quite
Yeah.
soon.
Gamescom, I believe, is when we'll get some more footage and potentially some gameplay. Did they say? I can't remember when they said that would be. Um, but yeah, looking forward to this. February
Either way,
27th is the
soon.
release. And to be fair, February 27th isn't even that long away, really, when you think about it.
Yeah,
So,
time flies. Not the only game news though, right? We've
not the
got
only game
Silent
news.
Hill
No.
F.
Silent Hill F, of course. We saw some more footage of that during State of Play, and we got a release date as well, which is September. Yeah, what does everybody think of this? Obviously, visually, it looks great. Set in Japan as well.
I think it looks fantastic, and I am just so relieved after a drought of like absolutely nothing Silent Hill, and we are not including Silent Hill Ascension. After like a drought of about, I don't know, what was it, 2015 was the last like major game in the series.
Yeah, not
To
including
find
pachinko machines.
Yeah, we do not include the pachinko machines. Yeah, um, to finally get like two games in the space of like a year is incredible, especially when one was as good as Silent Hill 2 Remake and one looks as good as Silent Hill F does. I'm really excited to see what they do with the story. I know it's Ryukishio 7. I might have got that name wrong. I hope I haven't, but who's doing the plot, and he is very, very, very celebrated in for his writing on other games. So that's really interesting to see like what he does with it. I like the Japan setting. I know it's divisive because people are like, oh well, it's not really Silent Hill. I don't know, like if you're a purist, I guess Silent Hill has to be like the same place, but like we've already kind of established with like Silent Hill 4, which again I know is like a divisive entry in the series, that Silent Hill games don't really need to be set in Silent Hill to be Silent Hill games. Like Silent Hill to me is more of a metaphysical state of mind as opposed to like an actual place. Even if there is an actual place to go alongside that, it's still more of like Silent Hill to me, the main connecting tissue of that franchise is like its themes, its ideas, its atmosphere, not necessarily its setting.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I actually think the series suffers when it connects everything back to like this kind of cult mythos of Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill 3's biggest strengths, for example, lay in like Heather as a character and her relationship with her father, who I know is obviously like Harry from Silent Hill 1, but like it was this kind of like one of my favorite moments of Silent Hill 3 is when you go into that I believe it's the hospital or the asylum, and you are being stalked by that guy who you never actually, there is no like model for him in the game. You never actually see him or encounter him. It's all just through the letters he's leaving behind because you didn't take his teddy bear. And it's really interesting. And like that stuff to me is more Silent Hill when it's kind of exploring the personal fears of its protagonists. In that case, Heather, you know, a young teenage girl being stalked by a man with inappropriate affections for her. Like that's more interesting than, you know, when it gets into all of the cult resurrecting some
it's a spooky town
stuff
that you could go
visit.
No,
When
I
it
agree
gets
with
into
you, Dan.
all
I
of the
think
God's apocalypse stuff, like, which is why Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorites, because like I know there is technically connective tissue to other games there, but like taken just on its face, it's completely standalone. You know, it is a story about somebody racked with guilt and grief, and Silent Hill just draws him in, and that's all we need. I think with Silent Hill F being set in Japan, like the idea of being able to take the weirdness and the discomfort of Silent Hill into this new setting, and they do seem to be tapping into like the psychological elements we saw in the new trailer. The protagonist walking through a field of what looked like crooked reflections of herself in the scarecrows. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I think the creature design looks amazing on this one. Like they've really, really nailed like this Japanese folkloric aesthetic, but gave it like a real Silent Hill edge. There's still lots of that kind of like twitchy movement of the like mannequins and nurses. I just can't wait. 100% will be getting the physical with the steelbook. Cannot wait. Up. So excited for it.
I think
I just hope it delivers.
There'll be a lot of potential, I think, to have it from a different kind of, you know, Konami, a Japanese company, so it's always had that, you know, those sensibilities and that cultural influence about it. But I think aesthetically designing it from a completely different culture and having like a Japanese setting will give us a whole new range of things they can explore. And I think you're right, it might help us cement the idea that like Asgard and Brexit, Silent Hill is more of a state of mind rather than an actual place you can go.
Rather than the blue tape.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then 3 more pieces of gaming news. I'm going to rattle through these just because I'm conscious of time. Blumhouse and Atomic Monster are producing a Phasmophobia film, which is pretty exciting, I think. Obviously, it's been a success since the game came out in, was it 2020? I think that's when it released.
It feels lockdowny.
Yeah, very much so. It's currently in development. The film will be produced by Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, who have obviously already adapted things like Five Nights at Freddy's as well. I don't think we've got anything in terms of a date for that, but that's definitely in the works. Other things, we saw a trailer for the horror first-person shooter Ill. That was shown at Summer Games Fest as well, which immerses you in a tense narrative that unfolds a huge research fort, a mysterious source of evil, and the horrific aberrations it generates stand in the way of the main character saving what is most precious. Did you guys see the trailer for this? I know this one kind of went away for a while, didn't it?
Trailer yet? No.
Yeah,
it not to be the guy who's just hype for everything and just sounds
that's
like
fine. That's fine.
It just sounds like a complete consumerist. Yeah, more things. But I thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really, really, really interesting. I love the way it seems to be playing with physical damage on the enemies. Like, you know, you can like kneecap one and it sort of like stumbles into itself. The creature designs look like really, really grotesque. Like it was almost the inverse Silent Hill in that it felt, at least from that trailer, it still was very, very much horror, but it was less like the psychological, sort of reserved, creepy, folkloric stuff, and just like really in your face visceral horror, like the mountain of flesh that sort of crawls towards you with all the arms and just falls out of that pipe in the trailer. Like, it's so goopy and visceral, and in your face, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be great. I really hope it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so I think there was a concept trailer, wasn't there, a few years ago, then it kind of went away. I didn't hear anything else about it until now, so that's great. And then finally, the final piece of news we've got is Dead Reset, Andy, which is very exciting, involving Dark
Yes.
Rift Horror, who obviously we've been closely connected to on the show, discussing movies like How to Kill Monsters, etc. This is how would you describe it, this one?
I mean, it looks like in the opening teaser that we've seen, a horror, maybe a sci-fi time loop element in there, an FMV game that Lindsay Crane, star of those movies you mentioned, features amongst the cast of. We've met Lindsay and her partner Stuart, who directed those movies, who are the team behind Dark Rift Horror. They've partnered with some games development team, and I literally had no inkling this was coming until I
No,
logged
me
onto the
neither.
socials this morning and saw the first trailer drop. I believe we're out Q3 this year,
Yeah.
September, I think the date was. I can pull that up.
Yeah,
But
coming to PC, coming to consoles
Xbox,
as well.
PlayStation, the consoles,
Hmm.
the lot. You can wishlist it now with indie development. It is quite helpful if you do that. Not that you shouldn't wishlist everything that you're interested in, but Konami and Capcom are doing absolutely fine, everybody. So if you can go and wishlist this one, we can really get some buzz behind them, make sure it gets promoted, and in the independent spaces especially, help nice people that we like get things made. It's coming along and it looks very exciting. So check out the trailer when you get the chance, and more news will follow
Yeah,
shortly, I'm
I'm
sure.
sure we'll get some people involved in that on the show to discuss that soon as well, won't we, Andy?
Yeah, I'll see if I can catch up with the guys, see if I can get them to come and chat to us a little bit about it as they head towards release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you managed to catch this yet, Dan? Have we managed to beat you to the punch on
Oh, you
upcoming
you
horror
beat
game?
you beat me to the
Oh,
punch
we
on that
have.
one. This is new info to me. I was just slyly googling it as
You
you
can
were
make it
talking
up.
about it. It's like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look more into
Oh, we shall look forward, knowing that you're the hype man. I should look forward to giving something else for you
that.
to look forward to. Yeah, I'm really excited because, yeah, I think the guys have produced exactly my kind of stuff. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with this.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so that's horror news. Let's quickly discuss what we've been watching. I haven't really got much this week, but I will mention that I have seen the movie Dangerous Animals, and I'm not really going to say much more because we're going to be covering that next week. And this is the movie that stars Jai Courtney as a serial killer who feeds people to sharks. Sounds like such a simple concept. So surprising that it hasn't been done before, not in this format at least. Have you seen it yet, Andy?
No, not yet this weekend.
Okay, so you're on your way. Dan, any interest in that, or have you seen it? Or
Oh, absolutely interested in it. Saw the trailer, was like, need to watch that. And then, just as
yeah,
this happens with almost everything I am interested in, because my tastes kind of go off the beaten path, I look up if there's any screenings near me, and there almost never ever is. So yeah, there's
ah,
just,
Oh,
unfortunately, where I am at the moment, there is just no way showing it whatsoever.
to be fair,
But if there is, I will.
yeah.
If it does show up anywhere, I will absolutely be watching that one.
Hopefully, it's one that gets a VOD release fairly soon. But you say that, I mean, even in Bristol, there were only two on the weekend it came out. There were only two screenings, like on the Saturday.
Man.
So that was kind of crazy. Even I was a bit like, well, it was either
There's
well,
go.
shark movie in the summer. Get on, Val.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny as well because like a lot of these, I mean, I don't know how well Dangerous Animals is doing. I hope very well. It seems like a real good like Australia. I believe it's an Australian horror flick.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, but like there's so many of these companies that'll release these films and go, oh, nobody went to see it, and I'm like, I tried to. It's just not didn't show like I know it's not horror, but a recent example, that Looney Tunes movie with Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, and there's an alien
Oh, the
invasion.
day the Earth blew up.
Yeah, not a single place I could see that outside of London that I could
Oh,
find. I just nothing anywhere. And even if I went to London, it was like, oh, do you want to catch this one screening in this independent cinema and
yeah.
nowhere else? Like it's
It's on in the
crazy.
middle of the working day.
Yeah, and then they go, oh, nobody came to see it. Nobody with this movie made no money, and it's like because you didn't put it on anywhere.
No. Oh man. Anyway, we'll be discussing that next week, so tune in to find out what we thought. I will do a little preview on that. It was bloody great. I loved it. It was
I look
good.
forward to
Hell
seeing it
yeah.
this week. And I was going surfing this weekend though, so I didn't feel that was a good combination.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah, they're yeah, probably
So
not.
now I've been in the water. Now I'll watch sharks next weekend.
Yeah. But Dan, have you seen anything recently that in the last 7 days or so? Anything new? Anything old? Caught something for the first
Uh,
time?
yeah, I mean, I've been really busy, so I haven't had as much time for the cinema as I'd like to lately. I did catch the Until Dawn movie. I felt
Okay.
somewhat of an obligation to it. I didn't rate it, unfortunately. I think it was. I respected that it wasn't just trying to do the game. I think Until Dawn is a weird one in that adapting it to a film almost defeats the point because it kind of
Yeah.
already is a film. And if you're adapting it to a film, all you're doing is picking one of the many, many, many routes in that game and saying, we'll just do that one. And you're sort of missing the point of the appeal of that game is that it is pretty much a standard generic horror film, but like the player is almost the director of it and determines what happens and all that. And I think if you just adapt it straight up, you lose. This is always a problem with like adaptations, like especially games adaptations. With any other adaptation, you are gaining something. So with a book to film, and I'm not saying like, oh, film is the superior
Yeah.
medium to books, but you are gaining something. With a book to film, you're gaining visuals. With a comic
Mm.
to film, you are gaining movement. With a game to film, you're losing something. You're losing interactivity. So there's
Hmm.
always that challenge of like, how do you step over that barrier when it comes from games to films of losing the main appeal of the text. And I think Until Dawn approached it in an interesting way. I'll give them credibility for that by basically not adapting Until Dawn at all. But yeah, having said that, I think it was too much of a departure for what that
Yeah.
game was. That it just felt like a time loop horror movie that had almost nothing to do with the game. It felt very much like somebody kind of at the end, like there was like an exec was like, "Oh, I've got this license. Can we stick it on that?"
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't need it to be like the game to enjoy it, but I just think what was there. And I'm sad to say this because I actually really like David F. Sandberg, the director. I really liked his work in the horror space with Lights Out and the Annabelle creation. I believe he did.
Mm.
I mean, I know he did an Annabelle film, and I know it was the prequel one. I just can't remember if that one's Annabelle creation, but I think it is. But yeah, I don't think. I think it's a weird one in that I think there was a lot of good in it, but the sum of its parts didn't do it for me. I did recently rewatch Blink twice, which I know not everybody loves, but I watched it with somebody, and it really, really, really resonated for her, and that
Okay.
made me appreciate the film even more. It's always great when you watch it with somebody who like loves, loves, loves
Mm.
it, and it was her first time seeing it. And then I know I've got a list of things I need to catch. I want to watch The Ugly Stepsister, but I haven't had a chance
Yeah.
to yet.
Yeah.
I
Same.
have been watching the Creep TV series, which I'm really enjoying as well.
Oh
That's
yeah.
It's
really
good,
good.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It is great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we covered Until Dawn. I think our thoughts were fairly similar to yours, Dan, about that. It was, yeah, kind of just felt a bit of a generic time loop horror. I had some
Don't
interesting
quote me
ideas.
exactly. I haven't had a chance to verify this information yet, but I believe the film's director may have put a review on Letterboxd, which is quite critical of it himself. It
Oh
could be that
wow.
it's a gag, and I've been suckered like your auntie getting a fake film poster. But I did see it posted today that I believe the director has put his review of the movie on Letterboxd, if the internet
That's
is to be
interesting.
believed.
I'll have to say if that's the case. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, do your own research, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Anything for
anything
you,
else for
Matt?
you, Dan? I've seen a
Uh,
couple.
yeah. What have I been watching? What have I been doing? I feel like there's stuff, but it's just not coming to mind. What I will say about Until Dawn, actually, if this is to bridgeway into Sweet Home, something Until Dawn did that I really don't like that Sweet Home does, and that I feel is like a missing element in a lot of modern horror these days. Um, so much of Sweet Home's beginning is just us kind of chilling with the cast
Meeting the
and getting
people,
to know
right?
them
Yeah.
and just their interactions. You know, it doesn't Sweet Home doesn't immediately start like this is a horror movie. We are full in on the horror movie. There's lots of time where you're just sort of like getting like, oh, this actress is like this present as like a little bit of a diva, and like this father is like still kind of hung up on his deceased wife, but he's got a bit of a thing for this woman, and like you just kind of seeing them interact and seeing the father interact with his daughter, and the daughter kind of like um you're getting like characterization of her, and there's lots in that like early period of Sweet Home that is literally just chilling with characters. And if you go back and watch like the earlier slasher films, like Nightmare on Elm Street has a lot of that at the start. You know, the before the sleepover goes very wrong, you do just get an idea of like who all the characters are at the sleepover and stuff. And like Until Dawn starts with all of the main cast already like deeply entrenched in the horror, in that they are on the road trying to find the protagonist's missing sister.
Yeah.
And so and that we're already in the mystery, we're already in the danger, and I just felt like it didn't give us any space to get to know who anyone was. So when people do start dying and things start happening, it's a real question of like, why would I
Oh
care?
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when like Until Dawn is built on the premise of like, I know it's they are getting worse and worse with each death, but it is built on the premise that they can die many times. So like it had this weird thing where the stakes were
Yeah.
sort of like extremely low.
Non-existent, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a game of
Because you
lemmings
didn't
out
care
there.
about the characters and the characters had extra lives. So it's like, well, how am I supposed to get invested in this? But yeah, just to sort of make a comparison of like, because a lot of modern horror does that where they put you straight into the horror. And like, I get it. You kind of, you know, you don't want to waste people's time. But sometimes the time wasting is kind of necessary. Sometimes you kind of need to chill with these people. And Sweet
Yeah.
Home, by contrast, is very, very slow in its opening, but I think benefits from that slowness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it means you've got some investment. If you look at it by modern standards, I don't think anyone would argue with you that Alien is an all-time classic. By modern standards, incredibly slowly paced at the start. It's like 45 minutes before anything happens.
Yeah.
Scary, like an
But super
alien.
important,
Yeah,
super important to
it's
Very
set the
it's so
important.
scene, set the
important that
character,
you
set the world.
see these things. Before we segue into Sweet Home properly, I'm going to rattle off a couple of things super fast that I've seen because I think Ben, I consider this. Think, oh, are you bringing something unique to the horror world, Andy? I don't think, with all the mathematical possibilities in the world, anyone has watched this exact combination of bits of media that I've consumed
Oh,
this
right.
week.
Ever or just this week?
First, never in this life. If you have watched these exact movies, text in and I'll call you a liar. So, um, Predator, Killer of Killers, the animated Dan Trachtenberg
Yeah.
Predator movie on Disney Plus. Um, it's good, really good animation, beautifully animated, real interesting piece at what they're trying to put together as a series and have some connective tissue. For good or ill, take this as a positive or a negative as your life experiences dictate. It's probably the most MCU Predator thing I've ever seen. So
Okay.
many Easter eggs in there and
I
connections to
see.
other things. It's new. We're not here to talk about it. I will spoil nothing. But if animated things is your deal, and if you just cannot wait for a new entry in the series, it's good. It's basically put together three shorts, which introduce individual characters, and then something that throws them together at the end in a final act. But you could almost watch it as a series. It's by nature of the fact it's glued together, it is a film, but it could be a 4-part miniseries of four
Hmm.
20-minute episodes equally enough. I also watched 1999's film The Killer Eye, in
Okay.
which
Okay.
an unethical scientist does an experiment with a man, and then a weird eye creature bursts out of his head from another dimension, from the eighth dimension to be specific, and goes round sort of mildly touching up naked women, um, and using its eye beams to incapacitate people. Um, for the entire time I was watching this thinking, this came out the same year as The Matrix. But it's quite funny. It's quite funny, but also as bad as the name would suggest, watching a giant disembodied floating eyeball sort of tentacle softly some women. Yeah, that's what happens in that film.
Tentacles softly.
And then, of course, the big finale, of course, Ben. I could not have another week pass where I hadn't watched another episode of Friday the 13th, the television series, everyone's favorite premiere series from
Amazing.
1987. I watched the second part of The Quilt of Hathor. Ben, no time to play a guessing game 'cause we're on a time limit today. So, if you sleep under the quilt, your dreams come true, but it usually involves killing someone. Um, ultimately, the bad man. And if you go under the quilt, you instantly fall asleep. It's not that you have to wait for you to be tired. If you go, right, I'm going to get you in a dream. Hang on,
Oh, I need one of them.
wait to sleep.
Is it like
Yeah,
a weighted,
it's like
a weighted, a
yeah, like
weighted
a weighted
blanket?
Yeah, straight to sleep you are. A man gets his comeuppance by pulling on the quilt too hard and falling out the window. In the end, teaches him a lesson though. And then the new episode of the week is called Double Exposure, where a news anchor, desperate for a story about a serial killer, uses a magical camera to create a copy of himself that he can send out into the streets to be the imaginatively titled Machete Killer, who kills people with a machete.
Oh,
And then basically, the rule of this cursed object is the copy may only live for 5 hours, and then the negatives have to be burnt, and then the copy disappears into ashes.
oh,
And if he doesn't burn it away, he will be the one that is destroyed.
I see.
Unfortunately, it is
High
another
stakes.
absolutely poor record for being in a romantic relationship with any of the main characters from Thing, because this time it's a girl who Ryan has been seeing for 2 dates who is brutally murdered.
Oh,
Yeah, comparison to Jack's long lost love who died a fortnight ago. They're having a rough
yeah.
time of it, but they're still having a jolly good time with, honestly, the highest concept, most exciting, to be honest, horrors that have inspired generations and have gone underappreciated for over the years. I continue to love it. I'm getting towards the end of the first season now, but I'm still enjoying it very well. And that
Amazing.
in rapid time is that, of course, I've
Love the
also watched
updates.
Film of the Week.
Yes, indeed. So let's get into it. Film of the week, which is Sweet Home, uh, also known as the Mamiya House, a 1989 Japanese horror film directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa and produced by Juzo Itami. It was released alongside a video game with the same title that in turn inspired the Resident Evil game series released by Capcom. In terms of IMDb, 6.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, no audience score and no critic score. It's one of those. It's one of those.
Deep cut week.
Letterboxd 3.3 out of 5. Some choice reviews from Letterboxd. Joshua Dysart says, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who has made some of my favorite formerly restrained and aesthetically minimal horror films, goes into full Spielberg meets 80s Hong Kong populist excess mode, and it's all pretty fucking silly and fantastic. 4 stars. Belial Carboni, wonder if we know who that is, Andy, says, I'm a sucker for zany supernatural shenanigans and cheesy haunted house films, and Sweet Home perfectly utilizes both. 3.5 stars. Maddie Flowers says, just a fucking beauty of a film. I would die for a full restoration and localization. A must watch for J horror fans and Resident Evil stans. 4.5 stars. And finally, Cameron Fetter says, wow, Sweet Home taps into a primal gothic goopy horror with huge shadows slithering up the wall, Pale, distorted faces wreathed in tangled hair, plumes of dust surrounding melting bodies. This movie has it all. And that final boss ghost, holy fucking shit. 4.5 stars. Um, Pretty good descriptions all round of absolutely everything there. So I'm assuming, Dan, that you're a big fan. What is your relationship with this film and, of course, the game as well?
Yeah, I love the film. And I have obviously a very specific relationship with the media of Sweet Home as a whole, because we chronicled its whole story in my documentary series we spoke about earlier, Terabytes. So I had already played it before then, but I had to replay through the whole thing in various different fan translations to record footage for that documentary, so that we had footage to cut away to while some of our interviewees, including the creator of Clock Tower, Hifumi Kono, sung its praises, which was
yes.
a really, really cool interview. And it was great that he was such a big fan of the game, so that we had somebody from the Japanese perspective to kind of like anchor their view on it. And yeah, I think it's a crazy, interesting piece of history. Like, as a movie, it's good fun. It is exactly what the reviews say it is. It's a big, haunted house at a fairground, splatter, goopy, 80s Japanese horror. It's populist. It is not like Kiyoshi Kurosawa's traditional work. If you know him from something like, say, Cairo or Pulse, as it's known in international territories, you'll know that he is a master of the craft in making and tends to work in the world of like these slow psychological haunting, almost like ethereal films. Sweet Home is not that. Sweet Home is borderline slapstick at times in a way that is completely complimentary. But it is interesting because I don't believe there is a way to watch the original cut of the film anymore. From what I understand, Juzo Itami, the producer, recut the film for home release. And that's the only version that was ever released outside of cinema. And it pissed off Kiyoshi Kurosawa so much there was a lawsuit. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, Kiyoshi Kurosawa lost the lawsuit. And so Itami, I hope it's Itami, otherwise I'm just saying that he did this thing to a filmmaker without his consent, and I might just be bad-mouthing the guy, and it might have been somebody else on the exec team, but I think it was Itami, was allowed to release the recut version that Kiyoshi Kurosawa has actually distanced himself from. So it is interesting that it feels so at odds with his filmography, because it makes you wonder how much of it is really his film. I know they actually reshot parts of the film for the home release. So maybe the original film wasn't as goopy and populist as what Kurosawa.
So parts of it reshot and re-edited for the home video and TV releases. Kurosawa was infuriated with Itami's decision to alter the film, and in a move that was unprecedented in Japanese industry at the time, sued him. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
As you mentioned.
Interesting. And it's not particularly widely distributed now, right? Like, I guess, Dan, if anyone is likely to be able to produce a beautiful VCD copy from somewhere, it might be yourself. But I know
yeah, Kaneko Video did a really, really nice restoration. They are a YouTube channel that specifically focuses on like obscure media, and what they'll do is they'll like combine like elements of like a laser disc print with like sometimes new subtitles. Sometimes they'll combine multiple sources from a DVD release, but then maybe the Laserdisc looks better for this segment. And they put together a really, really nice version you can get on YouTube if you just search Sweet Home Kaneko Video.
That'll be the one I watched today.
Yes.
That's the one I watched today as well, I think.
Oh well, you did. That's the best. That's the best version we've got. So you did yourselves a service. But I don't actually know. I don't think that is the theatrical cut. I think the theatrical cut may just be lost media now. I'm not certain about the history of that. But it is interesting. It is interesting. I would love to see the theatrical cut if it is different, which I expect it is from the version we've seen, just how different it is, like how different is the atmosphere, the tone, what's been reshot, what's been left on the cutting room floor, what new additions are in there. But either way, I think regardless, I know Kiyoshi Kurosawa has distanced himself from this version of the film. But I think you can still see the blueprints of his touch on it. Like there is some really like stunning shots in this that are, despite the kind of goopy monster madhouse approach the film has, like decidedly eerie and more subdued. One that comes to mind is the scene when they're first breaking into the Mamiya mansion, and you just get that cast of light and dust down onto the wheelchair, and it just lingers on that for a little while. I just think that's a really, really, really gorgeous image. There's a lot of the stuff around like playing with shadows and symmetry, and there's just lots of stuff that feels like at least at some point throughout this kind of what sounds like a messy and conflictive's not really a word, a conflicting production, that there was a master filmmaker like at the helm, and some of his fingerprints still kind of linger on the final product.
Absolutely. And of course, the
it's
horror.
Really interesting to see that. Sorry, Ben, you go.
No, I was going to talk about the game, Andy, but if you've got something else to say, then go for it.
No, I was going to say just the production here as well. It's a wonder that and this I'll tie neatly into the point with you, Ben. Bearing in mind what it went on to, the juggernaut franchise that this went on to, I would say very clearly be a huge inspiration behind, not just from a gameplay element with those door loadings that you see in the game, but also like the setting, that mansion in the forest, the overrun mansion that we see. Some of those early shots early in the film, like that looks like the Arclay Mansion. As soon as you see it, and the build up to getting in there, it is a huge wonder to me that we haven't seen, even tied into Resident Evil as a franchise, this be brought back as a curio or get a physical release. I guess the relationship issues around the production of the film maybe make that a little bit more difficult to seek out. And I guess especially as people who do care can seek it out online, maybe there just isn't the appetite for a commercial product. But it's really interesting.
There's with regards to the it coming up as a curio. So for those who don't know the story, Resident Evil originally was meant to be a straight up remake of the Sweet Home game. There was no
I did hear that.
Resident Evil. There was no Resident Evil at the time. That's how it started production. It was going to be a Sweet Home game. Resident Evil, as we now know it, actually span out from, and I imagine this is one of the things that's holding Sweet Home back from a more modern release or like an official localization. I believe span out from rights issues. Capcom were like, well, we'd much rather have a new IP that isn't kind of tied to other people, whether that was the director or the producer or anything. And that's kind of how we got Resident Evil, as kind of a way to avoid re-releasing Sweet Home. But obviously, the rest is history. Like, that was probably one of the best decisions Capcom ever made, because let's say even if they did release Sweet Home as a remake instead of Resident Evil, and it was just as heralded, you then have the issue of like, well, this is still kind of tied to those roots. Like, how do we do a sequel? Like, who has the rights to continue this franchise, or they're having to renegotiate it every time? The fact that they have the just full ownership of Resident Evil has allowed them to kind of do like everything with it. But yeah, it's because the film, obviously, the Capcom did develop the original games, so they in theory do like own the, not necessarily own the rights, but like they own the game, like it's in their back catalog. But Toho distributed the film.
Okay.
So there's maybe like
Toho of like Godzilla.
Of Godzilla
yeah,
fame.
yeah.
Well, there we go. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, so obviously you've played the game as well, Dan. So
Yes.
it was released the year the film premiered as well. It's like a horror, it's like a role-playing game, isn't it? It's like a rather
it's
than
a turn-based JRPG, yeah.
That's right, rather than like a straight up survival horror. Well, I guess survival horror games in a sense didn't really exist at this point anyway. I've only been lucky enough to watch a playthrough of it, but yeah, how does it play, and where do those similarities with the films kind of lie?
It's a genuinely excellent game, and I'm not just saying that for its historical significance. It has its challenges in terms of like the dated qualities of it. I would recommend if you are going to play it, don't feel like betraying the gaming gods if you need to use save states, because there is some utter bullshit, especially towards the back end of the game, where you will literally like there's one room towards the back end of the game where if you walk into it, your character can just die from quicksand like almost instantly.
Not
and
quicksand.
Like there is a way to rescue them if you get another character, because you have to like switch between characters almost like Lost Vikings style and move through this mansion. There is a way to get to them if you kind of move another character who has a rope over to the other side and throw that in. If you didn't know that to do that, like your character is dead, and they do not come back in this game. Once a character is dead in your party, they are dead. You lose their ability, you lose their you lose them as an asset in combat. Use save states. It is very much what you would call NES hard at times.
Oh, no.
But outside of those few instances, it is actually like quite fair for the most part. And it's a genuinely great game. What's really impressive about it is that it manages to probably be better than the film. I'd say, like, I genuinely think it might be better than the film is. It certainly has more to it. It's obviously like, I think it's about 6 hours long compared to the film's just over 90 minutes runtime. So it's able to be a bit more expansive with it. There's also like I wouldn't say it's as good at the storytelling due to the limitations of the NES, but it has more options for how the story plays out. So obviously in the film, you're kind of fixed to that narrative of spoilers, but only 3 members survive. Some has the capacity to have any combination of survivors versus deaths. You can have all of the party survive. You can have just the ones who died in the film survive. You can have ones who died in the film die, and then maybe one of the guys who survived dies, but the daughter lives. Like there's all these kind of different combinations you can do in there, and and it manages to. I wouldn't say take a lot from the film, because it's sort of hard to determine which. It's a really interesting case in that, because they both came out like at the exact same time, pretty much. Like it's hard to say which one was adapting the other, because it's one of those really rare instances. In fact, the only instance I know off the top of my head where like this property, like they went into it with the goal of this is going to be a film and a game. Like that was a decision made from the start. It wasn't like, ooh, that film seems to be picking up really good press and let's license it for a game, or ooh, that game, it's very popular, let's adapt it to a film. Like it was like, the idea was that it was a game and a film at the same time. If you watch some versions of the film, they'll actually open with a little animated skeleton telling you about the game, like in the opening of the film, like as a
Yeah.
teaser.
Oh no, I think I've
Um,
seen that. I think that's on
I
some.
yeah,
saw that little clip, little
Yeah.
Capcom logo at the start of the
Yeah.
film as well.
yeah. So like it was always meant to be like this kind of synergistic product, to use some really hideous corporate language. So it's an interesting one in that I would say it's the best adaptation of a game to film potentially. But it's also not really an adaptation.
Yeah.
Because
So
there was so much in
and
stride
Japanese
together
yeah,
character.
making this.
and equally, I would say it's one of the best movie tie-in games, but it's also not a adaptation that way. But having said that, it manages to capture so much of the horror of the film, despite the limitations of the NES. And it does take some like artistic liberties with it. So obviously, in the film, I believe it's Kazuo gets cut in half and ends up, well, not cut in half, like melted in half, and ends
Yeah,
up as like
melted
this.
into half.
Yeah, and it ends up as this like crawling torso. That torso is an enemy in the game, so it's just like a random JRPG monster you can bump into. But the sprite and the detail is like really like
Oh wow.
a good imitation of the torso that appears in the film. The characters, even with those like limited little JRPG sprites, you can see exactly who is meant to be who. In terms of like comparing them to the film, like they get the costumes all right, they get the aesthetics of the portraiture all right. They use a lot of the elements of the film in like interesting ways mechanically. So really early in the film, obviously for those unaware, the film is about a bunch like this film crew making a documentary in this Mamiya House. It's like a big famous mansion from this
Yeah.
old famous artist, and they are going in to document his incredible fresco paintings.
Right. No.
So that's a huge part of the game. You go into the house and you have to find these frescoes. And there's a moment in the film where they are restoring the frescoes. And they have this little like kind of like vacuum device.
Vacuum
That
and the
is a
dust
mechanic.
off.
Yeah, and this is that's a mechanic in the game. So
Yeah, I saw that.
you can't take pictures of the frescoes until you have a character come in. So different characters have different things. You have to have a character come in and kind of hoover all the dust stuff before you can get the details of the fresco and know what to do to advance the story. And then somebody else has to take a picture of it, and like you're juggling all of these characters and all of their inventories and all of their mechanics, and all of those mechanics and items fall in line with what we see in the film. And they get the whole story in the game about the mother who loses her child to the incinerator and starts to like burn the corpses of burn other children to so that his ghost isn't lonely. Like that's all in the game, like surprisingly captured quite well. There's even like a really gruesome, grisly animation well, grisly for a NES game, but still a pretty grisly sprite work of like a child coffin being pulled back, and you see the burnt corpse inside and stuff. Yeah, it's really like ambitious and impressive. And yeah, it's just a good ass game. It's a really really good game, and a game that is historically important in that it's essentially unintentionally birthed the biggest horror franchise maybe in the world. Like it's hard to say because like I'm comparing it across mediums, but the games tend to, if we're talking on a purely commercial aspect, games tend to make a lot more money than films.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, of
I
course.
imagine Resident Evil is kind
It's
of
gotta be.
made
It's
more
gotta
money
be
than
right up
anything,
there.
really. Like it's
And I
got to.
think we need to address at this point, everybody, as you know, everything Dan just said for the last minute or so. Remember the old phrase that Nintendo just do kids games? Yeah, in the bin with that concept, at very least in Japan, for the late 80s, for a film that one of your mob enemies is a burnt in half torso, and something with such deep and sort of dark, very, very, from the very beginning, a surface level darkness, someone who is traumatized to a level that they are murdering other children in fires, so the ghost of their dead child will not be lonely. I mean, that isn't really pulling any punches to this. So, maybe it was just our Western media that didn't quite have, that only really translated the they'll jump on these mushrooms if you like for your Nintendo games. They were going hard over there from the beginning. And to bring it over to the film there, what I really love about this, I want to go back to the element that you mentioned at the start, then, of them as chilling out with the characters. This opening scene where we get the introduction to all of our players, this film production crew as they go in there, it has the sort of light, breezy feel, if I can translate this to someone else's cinema, particularly the music really reminded me of like a sort of Peter Jackson's origins. It's got a lot of brain dead about it in the
Okay,
beginning. It's
okay.
quite a jolly
Yeah,
score. Like everyone's got, obviously there are cultural differences. It's in Japanese and not English, and it's not so overtly steered towards comedy. But they are sort of having sort of awkward banter together. The producer is getting sort of picked up by his daughter saying, "Oh, when are you going to make a move on this?" On this lady. Someone else is going to take her if you don't. I'm not going to be around with you forever. You're going to have to work these things out. And then you've got your um, apologies. Correct me on the name of this character, the driver that gets halved in a little bit, who is very much like a comedy, like a comedic performance to begin with. He's very slapstick, carrying that big axe around before he drops it on the floor.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
let's just sort of cover the plot to a degree. We won't go into like major detail of everything, but let's just cover the plot in terms of like where we start. You already mentioned this, Dan, but the plot is essentially a film crew of five people visit the old abandoned mansion of famous artist Ikiro Mamiya. Is that how we're saying that name? Intending to restore his paintings and film a documentary about him. The film consists of the leader Kazuo, his daughter Emi, the producer Akiko, the photographer Taguchi, and the art restorer Asuka. The house, however, is thought to be haunted by malevolent spirits. Undeterred, they enter the house anyway. So yeah, on the way to the house, Akiko, everybody they go to get a car refueled. So what the introduction with the character is Mr. Yamamura, isn't it? That's the older guy.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
the the garage attendant with an amulet that you can't just buy anywhere. This is the real deal.
Garage man with the amulet. Yeah, exactly. He's a very serious business. Um, and yeah, so when they enter the house, this is when Taguchi accidentally knocks over a monument, which unleashes the spirit of Akiro's wife, Lady Mamiya. Um, how did they get in through the front doors? Do you remember? Just
They don't get in through the front door if you remember. They do from the inside, but there's like a scene with a key turning in a lock. They have a key to the house and they turn the key in lock very slowly. And I think that's interesting. I know that sounds really dull to turn a key in a lock. I think it's really interesting, but that imagery of the like slow key turn and the trying the door really, really, really evoked the Resident Evil doors.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was actually probably more similar to the Luigi's Mansion animation, where he turns the
yeah,
key in the
yeah,
lock and then turns the door handle. In terms of like
Inspired that as well,
framing and
probably.
actually using the key, but Luigi's Mansion was obviously a direct response to survival horror games, so it all kind of
Yeah,
like
And he
ties in
vacuums.
back
and
to
he
Sweet Home. And
vacuums. I
he
was gonna say,
vacuums. It's all
and he
connected.
bloody
It's all connected.
vacuums.
You're seeing through the matrix now. You're seeing all the red
Yeah.
lines that tie everything together.
As these early stages are what reminds me of Resident Evil the most, and I think it's that the quiet moments before any true horror is experienced, that exploration side of things, the opening of doors, the kind of like different sort of visuals and stuff like that. I think those are the bits that evoke Resident Evil the most. Even the soundtrack occasionally, if you remember when they first get in there, that sort of like those few opening chords of like was it some sort of organ, isn't it? Some sort of like electronic organ. So Resident Evil. I was like, this is almost like the main hall theme, isn't it? Like it's very similar.
Yeah. And obviously Resident Evil, just the aesthetics, a big mansion full of bloody paintings. The whole lot of it. There'll be some
This
clues on some of those.
this
Like,
gothic
you
horror
have to get
thing.
them, you have to click a switch under each one in the right order, otherwise crows will come and get you.
Oh yeah. this gothic horror thing is this is what drew me to Resident Evil originally. This is what feels quintessentially Resident Evil to me. I know, obviously, I think in terms of the franchise, people tend to look upon Resident Evil 2 as the best of the franchise, but I think it didn't replicate that horror in the same way. I know it went more action in the second game, but there's something about it, just those quiet moments, just in the sort of corridors that feel like they're closing in on you. That feels really like they replicated that well here, or they replicated it in the game. Sorry, I should say that's the order.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. So after they've unleashed the spirit of Akiro's wife, later on, Asuka gets possessed by Lady Mamiya. When when do we find the body
This
of?
first possession is deeply disturbing. So first she's getting her hair washed and then all of a sudden sits up with sort of hollow features and scares the assistant so much he has to go and get absolutely tanked up to forget
That
about it.
that's the moment that I think the film feels most Kurosawa. It's very not quite not remotely on the same level, but it's much more in his wheelhouse. Everybody points to like the scene in Cairo of the ghost like walking and if you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. There's just this movement that's just really like unsettling, but it's that slow kind of dread buildup. It's not gory, it's not
No.
like in your face. That first kind of possession with the washing of the hair and like the slow kind of reveal that, oh, something's very wrong with her, and the walk towards the cameraman, and then those hollow features reveal, like that's much more in line with the kind of stuff that Kurosawa does. So it's interesting when you get a film that sort of combines those bits with the like heavy populist splatter
Yeah.
of like almost like a Friday the 13th or something. It's very it's such an interesting film for how much it kind of like dances between those two moods, because there's like at some points there's real like as one of the reviews mentioned, like Spielbergian special effects. Like the final boss monster has this giant cool ghost puppet thing. It looks amazing.
Firing
There's
like
lightning
beams of
bolts firing,
electricity like
yeah.
Skeletor and
But then equally there's like, an elongated scene of like a woman digging up a child's corpse.
this
And
is
Yeah,
now,
and
right?
that,
So
this is
yeah.
after
now, and
features
this.
just this lady like clawing in the cold earth to bring up this almost sort of Geiger-esque child's coffin
Yeah,
out of the ground, which immediately upon opening we get a disturbing scene because obviously, you know, just a normal corpse of a baby would be a horrible thing to unearth. But then for the distortion you get even in this figure as she pulls it out of the ground, it's really where the film takes its first turn from the sort of lighter tone of these guys. And there's been allusions to what's about to happen, but this first real visceral bit of horror, it takes makes you take a little bit of a step back as that first happens, and then we don't really, de-escalate from there until the film comes to an end.
Mm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost a little bit of a quite a change in the fact that we go from something that's quite a kind of a bit playful, as you said, like obviously with those Peter Jackson style soundtrack as well occasionally, and I guess the
Yeah.
combinate the comparisons that people have made to like this Spielberg meets 80s sort of like movie. A lot of reviews kind of talk about Poltergeist as well as being sort of like having some similar
Okay.
DNA going on with it as well.
So when do we get our first? So, the guys try and get on with their work the next morning, and uh, Asuka is a little bit sort of. She wakes up the next morning and comes to work, and she's a little bit confused, doesn't remember what she's done, and they rebury the coffin, right, when they discover it. But then as things escalate, we get the sort of first double death, and you've mentioned it, the cameraman who gets sort of burned into half. They're encroached upon by this terrifying shadow that appears behind them. She sort of returns to like a trance-like state and says, you know, everyone dies, and then this shadow kind of looms over them, and through spectral forces burns this man in half. She comes out of it and runs away, and is like, he isn't actively pursuing her as an antagonist so much as he's gripping onto her, like begging for help, and then an axe that was placed that she gets a little bit Final Destination, I guess, by
Yeah.
an axe that was placed there earlier. I was thinking at the time, lay it down, mate. Just lay it flat.
Yeah, yeah,
Precariously
absolutely.
place it there, yeah. Oh
He
man.
literally, it falls over. It ends up stuck in the floor of wood with enough force to pierce the wood and stick there. And then they're like, "Whoa, don't mess about with that." So he's like, "Ah, yeah, I should take this out of its place where it is quite safe right now. Damage more structural integrity of the house that's falling apart, and then stack it up precariously against this wall. That'll do it."
Let me just lean it against this door. As long as I close the door quickly, it'll be fine. There we go. Now, not to think about that again. And and again, especially where it begins as a to begin with. Obviously, we know what this film is going to be about going into all these years later. But I feel if you'd started this film from the beginning, it could have almost been a child-friendly haunted house movie to
Yeah,
begin
yeah,
with.
Mm.
exactly. It could have
Until
been.
someone gets melted in half, well, until you dig up the baby, I guess, and then you get melted in half and an axe
Yeah.
in the face within about 10 minutes.
That
When he gets
axe as well, like the way it's shot, they do so much previous to it hitting her in the head to make it feel heavy. They're like
Yeah,
he's like wandering around, and he's like oh, and then it embeds in the floor. So when it does embed itself into her head, it feels like a thunk. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
with the sound
Yeah.
and the previous build up to how heavy it is. It's really like well structured
And
to
it's
give
all
like the
built
maximum
physically as
impact.
well, right? It's
Yeah,
like at no point does anyone go, "Oh, bloody hell, this is heavy." It's all done with like physical
yeah,
performance and
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
move this
absolutely.
around.
Yeah, and then when it does hit her, like I remember like watching it for the first time, and even though I've seen far gorier things in horror films and far more messed up things, like it still like kind of made us go like, "Fuck, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
jeez," because like it looks like it hurts. I mean, it wouldn't hurt for very long because I don't think it
Yeah.
stay alive through much of that, but like it looked heavy and it looked like it really like thunk.
Yeah.
It's brutal. It's really brutal.
It's a
And
great
motifs we see, like even Resident Evil 4 now, right, with the knights and the things. And I
Mm.
watched some clips
yes, yeah.
recently, the bit, especially the bit where you play as Ashley, where you've been chased by all these suits of armor. The series has been making use of these big, heavy weapons and medieval
Yeah,
weaponry
yeah.
to this day.
I suppose there are some similarities with Resident Evil 4, especially like the original iteration of Resident Evil 4. Remember when the supernatural thing and the hook guy, the like ghostly figure, it was much more
Mm.
supernatural, wasn't it? That kind of reminded me of this in a way as well. Like a lot of that. The guy getting melted in half is a great effect as well. He just keeps on crawling, doesn't he? He just keeps on coming.
It's a really impressive effect because I don't know, like if you watch David F. Sandberg's recent making of on Until Dawn on his YouTube channel. For those of you that haven't seen Until Dawn, there's a crawling torso in that film as well,
Mm.
and he talks a bit about how they did that with practical effects, and they fake it. They fake it so that you shoot with like somebody who can sell that effect from the back, and then you shoot with the main actress in front, but you shoot it and you frame it so you never see the bottom
Mm.
half of her. But she's not physically crawling with this kind of like torso prosthetic and all that. When you see it in Sweet Home, and obviously this predates Until Dawn by like a good 30 years, it's all in one shot. The guy is crawling,
Yeah.
and like you see like, and you can see there's obviously some ropiness to like elements of it, but like it's really impressive that they pulled off like the full physical body crawling with the torso and all the goopy bits and gory grisly stuff hanging out of it in like one shot where you are seeing the actor's face and the bloodied body at the bottom half and movement. Like it's genuinely like really impressive stuff.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, super, super impressive, and definitely I enjoy that.
And so from
But
here we get to escalate to the poltergeist era of the film,
yeah,
right? With the possessions and the amulet use and the sort of electric force fields and people being thrown through doors. And I guess this is where we get the discussion of how you should defeat the evil, right? So our gas station attendant turns up and shares some of the background around the time that is it Aki, the daughter, who is or is it Emmy?
Emmy.
Emmy.
Do you
So
get the
Emmy is
impression
abducted.
that the daughter maybe like should have been was like written as a younger character because like the way
Yeah.
she acts? And is she like a pop star, like a Japanese pop star apparently that
Uh,
plays
I I don't know anything about that. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But the she definitely feels younger than her actress appears to be.
yeah. I find
Well,
it
the
so
guy he says, "Have you got homework?" Right? Just no, I'm on summer break. So she's meant to be at school.
her name's Noko, Japanese singer, and she was the lead singer of the popular band Rebecca Chambers, who had a string of hits in Japan in the 1980s. So there we go.
Okay,
But
so
Well, there you
IRL a
go.
pop star.
so there we go. But yeah, acts much younger. It was always kind of grabbing hold of who is it she's grabbing hold of? Like almost like the I guess is our essentially our two survivors. We
Hiding
are
in a sleeping bag.
yeah we are obviously spoiling absolutely everything about Sweet Home at this point. So if you're listening now, you've come too far anyway. So yeah, and where do we go next?
So she's almost taken. We'll speed through a little bit for the purposes of time today. But so she is almost lured in. Again, she is a character who we've established that her mother is someone that they've lost, and she ends up kind of breaking some pillows in a room and is then sort of engulfed by the mysterious force and taken away. Neither the garage attendant's amulet or just her dad running in to do dad rescuing are effective at the time,
Yeah.
um, which basically lead the guys to have to have a heart to heart and then go to try and rescue her from the basement where the furnace is. Um, I quite liked this element as they go down and they have to work together. Even they have sort of conflicting ideals of what they can do. They eventually follow the older man's advice and he sort of leads the way and sacrifices himself
In
to
an
get the girl back.
amazing scene. It is like talk about a big gratuitous death for a hero. Like he like peels away and then he's all skeleton and it's incredible.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Yeah, it's insane. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it looks fantastic.
It
And
really does. Yeah.
actually, to bring it back to the game, they replicate that sequence where he melts fully down to his skeletal remains really impressively with NES graphics. It's well worth seeking out. It's probably one of the most iconic images from the video game. If you watch Terabytes, you'll know it because if we talk about it in Terabytes and we show that clip. But yeah, it's like it's impressive again how much they managed to pull from the film. But I will say in this specific instance, as impressive as the NES game is, the film is just so much more crazy impressive. It is
Yeah.
a long gratuitous death. Like there's that point where
Yeah.
like, and it is gory. Like there's the point where like his eyeball explodes and falls out, like, and the remains like fall out of his face. But it looks incredible. Like it's such amazing practical effects. Really, 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 really great stuff from. I think the makeup and practical effects guy on this was Dick Smith. I may have gotten that
Oh
wrong, but
wow.
like really great stuff.
And Dan, the only thing that wasn't evident in my translation, if you don't know that, I don't expect you to, you just have a better odds of knowing it than I do. So before the guys go down into the cellar to try and make the rescue, the old man pauses for quite a change of pace and he does like a song. He like sings a
Yes,
song
yeah, it
now.
is.
Now, certainly in the version I watched, the song isn't subtitled. Is there any deeper context to what the song is that he sings?
He sings so. He sings about a lost love, I believe, if I remember rightly. I've literally just watched it today, but it is it's kind of a jarring moment if you're not expecting it. But yeah, he sings about finding the strength to meet a lost love. I don't know if it's like an old. I don't know if it's a song made up for the movie or if it's in like an actual Japanese song, but it seems to be that the song is kind of like a spur of inspiration for like finding somebody you may have lost, which ties into the whole film's themes of like grief. Obviously, the two protagonists in the father-daughter combo are tied to the grief of losing his wife and her mother, and the main antagonistic force is kind of intertwined with the grief of losing a child, and all of those griefs kind of like interlink. So yeah, that's I can't remember the exact lyrics of the song, but it's something along those lines.
That makes a lot of sense. It wasn't subtitled in the version, and I would have totally forgiven the film. It was like, no, the actor that played the old man just said, "I will only sign on to this film." Dennis Waterman style, get to sing the main song.
He just really, really fancies his future career as a pop star.
You're right.
One of them's like, "I'm the pop star in this." No, me, the old man.
Dan, you're right. It was Dick Smith, who also did effects on films like The Godfather, The Exorcist, Taxi Driver, Scanners. I wonder how he came to work on this film. That's actually pretty fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. It's talent, I guess. They just must have been like, we need this guy.
Get him over.
Get him over.
Get him over immediately. So when do we get to the point where obviously the story of Lady Mamiya is kind of explained about how her child died? So she had a son called Ichiro, and one day the child was playing inside the furnace when Lady Mamiya turned it on without knowing he was inside. The child was killed, and Lady Mamiya suffered heavy burns trying to save him. Playing in a furnace.
Is it the son that's called Ichiro? I thought it was her husband's called Ichiro, and it's her.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Lady Mamiya and Ichiro had a son. Yeah, playing in a furnace. I mean, tons of places where, especially in a big house like that, tons of places where you can go, I'm gonna get myself in the furnace and have a quality time.
They lived in the olden days there weren't like harrowing public service information adverts like there were when we were growing up. They don't fuck about on the farm, lads. You'll fall into a story pit and
fall down the grain
instantly.
If you ever want to do a horror hangouts episode on old British PSAs, they are a source of eternal horror.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Absolutely.
That is well worth visiting. I've been considering doing a video on them myself because, my God, they are graphic for being children's entertainment.
What was the horrible like Grim Reaper thing that was like on a I want to say on a lake?
Dark and Lonely Water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then there was,
he's climbing on this tree. The branch is rotten. It'll definitely snap.
Especially if he lets go.
It's horrible.
There's one on a farm. I think it's called something like
Apaches.
Never Rest in Peace. Or was it Apaches?
Apaches is the quite long one. It's about 15 minutes long and about a half dozen kids, smashed by a gate.
Yeah, the gate smash is brutal.
God.
Is Apaches the one where there's a child drowns in literal shit as well?
Just falls in and then sinks.
Yeah,
sinks
it's
like a stone.
Pit. It's so grim. I
think the one that disturbs me the most is probably the one that's maybe the least graphic. It's when they're sitting around having a meeting, they all drink from a bottle, and most of them pretend, apart from a little girl that does sip from it, and it's just some farm acid. And then you just the consequence scene is basically just her house that night, where they're just screaming for her mom, and then the family screaming, and you see the lights coming on in the house.
Wow!
You don't see anything, but it is honestly, everybody.
Is that also the one? Upsetting. Is that also the one where the father literally like carries his daughter's corpse that's drowned out?
Oh God!
Like, man, British PSAs hit hard. That might be the other one. That might be the one that I'm thinking of. I don't know if its name was called Never Rest in Peace or something. It was something similar to that. But yeah, there's a scene where like a child drowns in like the lake on a farm, and there's just this really harrowing image of this father just genuinely just shell-shocked looking, like 1,000-yard stare, carrying his dead daughter out of the water, and it's like, Jesus Christ, this would be like harrowing in like an 18+ film, and you're showing it to like children in primary schools.
Between episodes of Super Ted, saying, "Look, don't fuck about on the farm near trains."
It's mad as well because I don't know about you guys, but we got shown all of these PSAs in primary school,
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't live anywhere fucking near a farm. I
No,
don't
no,
know
no.
why I had to sit through this stuff.
I live
Like
in the
every one
Midlands.
of
There's
them,
not a farm for
there
eternity.
was zero risk of any of us going to a farm, but we
No.
still had to watch the horrid farm torture movie. It's a rite of
We got a lot
passage,
about
kids.
we got a lot about fireworks most of October as well. It's like if you
Yeah.
even look at a firework, here's a kid with his fingers blown off.
Yeah,
It's like literally horrible.
good stuff. Good stuff.
So anyway, the actual horror movie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the old man sacrifices himself so Emmy can be rescued. They lose her on the way back out as they're trying to run. So they go, oh, fucking hell, I've got to go back in. Um, which kind of leads us to a final confrontation where if you watch in the video, we see the image come together.
So I guess
Um,
following on from that and giving that ghost a little bit of context, the event of the son being burned alive in the furnace calls Lady Mamiya to go insane, kidnapping the children from the local village and killing them to make sure her son had playmates in the afterlife. Lovely, that's kind. The parents of the kidnapped children storm the mansion, calls in Lady Mamiya to kill herself by throwing herself into the furnace. And her spirit was obviously unable to rest then. Hence, her coming back as this final boss ghost, who
took
would
a
give you a
classic
lot of
Freddy
trouble.
Krueger deal, didn't she? Well,
Mm.
you've killed me out of revenge for doing a horrible thing, so
I'm gonna live
I guess
forever.
I'll come back as a ghost. Yeah,
Incredible looking ghost. Like
yeah,
not just any
so
ghost,
good.
this big, massive witch monster
Yes,
with gangly
huge.
limbs and a missing eye and like prosthetics for days. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it is great. It is. It really is
Like
great.
there's a world, an alternative world where I want to live in, where this got like a major like wild Western release that was super popular, and there is now a Halloween Horror Nights in Universal
Oh
Studios
wow,
that
yes.
licensed the Sweet Home property, and you go in and there's a giant animatronic of the Lady Mamiya in a final ghost form, and like, oh, I want it, I need it, I wish it was real. Prepared to solve interdimensional travel to find the reality in which it exists. Like that is something that
Yeah.
it's where the film gets to its like fairground ride kind of roller coaster best, because it is just pure incredible spectacle,
Mm.
and it is so fun. Just the most amazing thing to look at, and yeah, like a genuinely great climax to everything that came before. Like it feels like it all builds to this moment of like her big final boss reveal.
Akiko
Yeah.
does try to fend her off with a pitchfork, though, right? At one point.
Tries all the best weapons. I think the most effective weapon she has before we find the true solution is when she wazzes that chair at her. Not,
Yeah, just whazz a
not,
chair straight
not,
out. Yeah.
not until Backwards Boy Gabriel have we seen someone throw a chair so effectively again. She throws that chair and she gets like a little explosion out of her. It must be flame round chair that was there because she does bend her off slightly with
Oh
that.
yeah.
Unfortunately, the pitchfork is not as effective, and she electrocutes her
Mm.
as we go
Fo-
through. And at this point, we
Force
believe her father to
electricity.
have been killed. Yeah, she's got full on Palpatine power. Um, Thankfully, I mean, the lesson we can all take away from this thing is, I mean, it doesn't always work. Famously in the ring, give ghosts what they want.
Mm.
Like what she
Yeah.
wants is her son. Here he is back.
That always seems to happen, doesn't it, in films like this? Just
Yeah,
do
well,
the right thing. So yeah, Emmy gives Lady Mamiya the corpse of her son, causing her to realize the error of her ways. I mean, that's a jump. I don't know. I don't know if we know that this ghost realizes the error of its ways. It's
I just
simply
assume reunited and it feels so good, right? She has
Mm.
a little tear.
a little tear, yeah. But this is great. Even like a close up of this like effect still looks great. Like
Yeah.
you cannot tell me there is anything in the world where this is a CGI shot and it looks better. This just looks
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
legit.
And it's genuinely like quite emotionally cathartic, and it reminds you there's that music plays with the English lyrics about Sweet Home, and it's quite
Mm.
like yearning song. It's quite a like mournful song, and it reiterates, like, that payoff reiterates the importance of those early scenes in a horror film where you do just spend time with the characters, because learning about these characters is what makes that payoff worthwhile. Without the context of, like, all of the grief tie-in and people losing people, and how that's similar, how then, like, a similar boat to the antagonistic victim, to the antagonist, who is in her own way like a victim of a horrible tragedy. Like, none of that pays off without that exploration. Like, you don't really get, like, without that context, without that, like, if we didn't spend time with the initial characters and realize they were grieving a mother and a wife, then that sort of, like, moment where they look at the villain and the villain has that cry, and the music plays, like, there's almost like a moment of acknowledgement between them there. Like, it's not like, ha, we beat you. It's like a look of, like, yeah, like, I get this feeling. Like, that is genuine catharsis in a film that is, like, really does, for all of its splattery goopy goodness, like, have something to say about grief, or, like, at least, like, want to explore the idea of grief. And it pays off because of that, planting that seed earlier.
And then we see another transformation, right? We've gone from a shadowy spirit to this grotesque final boss creature that we've got, and then we see her transform again back into a more human shape, clearly at peace, with more of a positive spin to it. I mean, she obviously did a good bit of apologizing when she was dying in the furnace, because she appears to ascend to heaven. I'm like, hang on.
Hang on a minute. How many kids have you kidnapped and killed? Well, I'm sorry about it. Get yourself in heaven. Come on.
So,
All
are you
right.
sorry? You have to look, say it out. If you're really sorry, yeah, write it down then. I'm sorry.
Get into heaven, you little scamp. Bring your baby.
Oh God, I can't stay mad at you. Yeah, maybe that is it, because the baby gets to go to heaven. They come as a package deal. It's like me getting a visa to Australia because I'm married to a doctor. It's like, yeah, come on, you're allowed. Come on in. I'm not moving to Australia, just hypothetically.
Emmy and Akiko leave the house. Oh wait, Kazuo as well.
No, this is where we go back into the realms. The ghost is gone, and we're able to pivot back into silly little bit of comedy at the end, because they're leaving the house together, saying, "Oh, what happened to my dad?" And she goes, "Oh,
Yeah.
tell you later." And then we just go back in there, and he's in a cupboard, and he just, like, steps out, like, he's like almost in a more overtly comedic film, he would have, like, some soot on his face, like he's been slightly exploded.
Yeah.
I respect him.
And then we just see him, like, they're walking away, like, Akiko's getting ready to tell Emmy a little bit later that her dad has perished in this horrific incident, and then he just stumbles out behind him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he must
Classic.
have. She must be going to tell me later that he just had to nip the wheat for a wee or something. But and then they're all together, and off they go, and it's all, and then sort of the jolly score from the beginning of the film just returns as they walk off into the woods.
And then a classic Resident Evil moment, which is self-destruct of the haunted
Yeah, the mansion.
of the mansion, just crumbles inwards, and is gone, crumbles to dust. There we go.
All the frescoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Gone.
And that's it.
Interestingly, the game has a more cynical ending. The
Does
game
it? Okay.
doesn't end happy. Even if you keep and get the best ending, even if you keep all of your party members alive, after the mansion crumbles, you talk to this last character, and they're like, "Oh, well done," but they're, like, looking away for some reason, and, like, because of the limitations of the NES, it's a reused sprite of a creature from before. So you're like, "Well, I know where this is going." And, like, the final reveal is like, "Oh, but you forgot one thing," and it turns its head, and it's one of the monsters. And that's the end for the game.
Yeah.
Like, that's
wow.
the cut black.
A much more
So
cynical
the
ending.
the game doesn't seems to suggest that they had a far worse fate, even in the best possible ending.
I would absolutely like to play the game after watching this film. But yeah, there we go. That's the end. Should we rate the film? Should we rate the film, Andy?
Yeah, let's give some ratings, shall we? Dan, I think you should go first. Really, you're the pro on
Yeah.
this one.
Well,
So
here's the thing. I hate rating films. I don't have a letterbox because you have to assign numerical scores to
yeah,
things, and I
it's
just hate
difficult.
it.
Well, we won't
I
give you a
don't.
numerical scoring down. Let's go for A to F. Pluses and minuses are allowed, so you
Oh,
get
it's the same thing.
slightly
It's the
more.
same thing. It's just I hate. I don't know. Like for me, it's like the way like I look at films. It's like if I was gonna rate them, they're like different numbers on different days and different times anyway. So it's just
Give
such a
us a rating
fluctuating
for every
scale.
day of the week, and
All right, all right. So if you watch it on a Monday afternoon, it's a set. No, okay. I will just for the sake of playing along, even though I don't like doing this, I'll say it's an 8, and I
nice.
think it is just a very fun movie. It's a good way to spend an evening. Historically significant for multiple reasons, both in not just its game influences, but also it's a more obscure piece of work by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who is a genuine master of the craft, especially in the horror space. It is worth seeking out as both a curio and also just a good, goopy Peter Jackson-esque meets Poltergeist good time. It's not going to necessarily be anybody's favorite film. It's not going to like set the world on fire. But it's good fun. It's good fun, and if you are into kind of more obscure or classic Japanese horror, like there's a lot to love here.
Nice.
Absolutely. I think that's fair. I mean, I'm going to go a bit lower than that only because, look, this is the first time I've seen this film. I understand. I think after discussing it with you guys, it's made me appreciate it a lot more. I definitely need to give it another watch. I definitely need to play the game. But yeah, I can see that DNA sort of that inspired Resident Evil absolutely. And the effects are absolutely amazing without doubt. So I'll go for a B minus currently. But as time goes on and I think about it more and maybe return to it, it could easily be higher than that. Andy?
Wonderful. I'm probably going to join you, I think, Ben, on a B minus because I think there's a lot to enjoy here. What this has given me a real hankering for, though, is to see this in its fully, restored even more than it is. I would love to see this in like the cleanest possible print. And you know what? We talk so much about corporate synergies and hey, this that doesn't require a remake is being remade. If it cannot be restored or it's just not practical to restore it for any further reasons or any creative reasons, there are some wonderful ideas here of a film which can't continue to exist. Well, it can continue in as well as it does today, but it can't be fully realized again. So if you're going to remake anything, give me one of this, and that would go for the game as well. This has been it's so wonderful to see
Yeah.
the DNA that this went on to inspire. But I do think there is a divergent version where there is room for this to exist. I don't think if you remade this, it wouldn't be like Nosferatu last year. It's like, well, this exists in a more perfected or a different format already. Bring this back. Give me a new version of this to mess with. If you're listening, Capcom, anyone, I got money for you if you want to get on with
I
this.
got a little bit of money
And
for you.
in the meantime, if you're listening and you want to help out your old friends at Horror Hangout and helping their dreams come true, get those numbers up watching this on YouTube a little bit more. Go and get this watching so that corporates get to see the numbers that they really care about coming to life and go, hang on, there's an audience for this because I think it is really worth investigating, but still a B minus in that there's a lot to enjoy and a lot to take away from seeing this. And I've probably gone up a little bit from just a raw watching from discussing it with you guys as well. So like you, Ben, I think I might have to go back in and try and
Yeah.
appreciate
I
this
want
a
to find
little
out
bit
more about
more.
it, definitely. I'm going to be watching
Yeah.
all of
And
the.
I think I'm getting back on the game. I'm going to get through it.
Yeah. I want to watch a full playthrough of the game and I'm going to watch some YouTube video essays about the
I'm getting the
about the
save
movie.
states out, Ben. I'm going to do this
I've got I've got
firsthand.
I've got my own video essay on the film, so there's one for you if you
Do
search
Oh,
Dan
you?
Bramble
another
film.
one for the
Yeah,
show notes.
Oh man,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, we'll
Search
put that in the
Dan
show
Bramble
notes too.
Sweet Home. I've got my I think it's about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. So on that, where can our listeners find out more from you online then, Dan? Obviously we'll put the terabytes link as well. So Dan Dramble's on YouTube.
Yeah, Dan Drambles on YouTube and pretty much all social media. That's kind of like where I linger outside. I was going to say like outside of my professional stuff, but like it's all one and the same. Like it's all just me. Like in my professional world, I'm talking about horror. In my hobbyist world, I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
horror. So yeah, there's a ton. I haven't uploaded to YouTube recently, just because I've been so busy with terabytes. Now that the full release has happened, I'm going to start winding down from post marketing that and do some more stuff on YouTube. But in the meantime, if you want to find us on there, there is like a mountain, about like 15 hours of over 100 episodes of horror video essays on different films to go through. Under the banner of a series called Wholesome Halloween. It was a series I did every October, and it's just kind of accumulated into like this 100-episode behemoth now. So feel free to look at all of those. And yeah, talk about other horror stuff and just films in general on that channel. Again, Dan Drambles on all social media. Terabytes Doc on social media if you want to follow the Terabytes documentary on socials, and of course terabytesdoc.com if you want to buy the documentary. It's a huge passion project made by an indie core team of only 4 people, and we shot globally, genuinely all over the world: Australia, Canada, France, Japan, England, like just everywhere you can think of, with some of the biggest names in games and in horror. And it was genuinely true honor speaking to a lot of them, and it's been a cumulative effort of over maybe like 2 years of work if you go back to the pitching phase. It's phenomenal to have it come to fruition, and I'm very, very proud of it. And if you would like to support it, you can get that on terabytesdoc.com. And with enough support, we'll get the green light on even more projects. So please do that. It'd be great for me.
Check it out, everybody. Dan, I have subscribed to that channel. I'm going to listen to your Sweet Home review before I get myself off to bed, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
So, awesome. Thank you so much.
End my evening with you.
Oh, and before we finish, I've been waiting for a moment to say this the whole time. My horror Rushmore, it has changed. Zombie and Ash are out. Sadako and... God damn it, I forgot them now. Sadako and...
I'm surprised that like Sadako or Pyramid Head haven't appeared before this, Andy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Good though.
Well, there's an argument for Nemesis as well. I guess
I thought Nemesis. I was thinking that for mine, but I ended up putting Jill Valentine on there. Okay, go for it.
So Sadako is this is my logic. Pyramid Head as a representation of video game horror. Freddy Krueger is a representation of the slasher film. Sadako is a representation of J-horror, and Dracula is a representation of traditional horror and the classic Gothic horror literature, and also the burgeoning bubble of bringing horror to film.
Which version would you choose? Would you choose a movie version or the book version of Dracula? Bela Lugosi or
probably Bela Lugosi is going to be like the most synonymous. So I think Bela Lugosi is just kind of he's not even my favorite Dracula. Obviously, he does a phenomenal job, but he's not my favorite. But he's just so synonymous with the idea of Dracula and the imagery of Dracula. Even if, like, in some ways, he's a drastic departure from the Dracula of the book, it's such a the accent and the presence and everything, it's so synonymous with Dracula that like I feel like he is the image of Dracula. Like, I haven't done it, but I'm willing to bet that if you open a new tab and Google Dracula and click images, like the first page is primarily going to be Bela Lugosi before anything else.
Absolutely.
Good choices, Dan. I think that's
great choices. Absolutely.
From speaking to you for a couple of hours, very much on brand. I think you've nailed it.
Awesome.
Definitely. Okay, so thanks very much for joining us, Dan, and thanks to everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review, and head over to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, YouTube, for more, or horrorhangout.co.uk, where you can find out all of our links there together. And next week, as previously mentioned, we're tackling dangerous animals. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, certainly so. Thanks, everybody. In the meantime, if you do encounter any, traumatized spirit, just immediately don't piss about, don't try anything else. Give them their baby. Like that.
Give them what
Give
they
them by tea
want.
time.
Give me what I want, as Dave Bautista once said.
Straight to the
Okay.
baby and you be straight home. All the best.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.
Cheers. Bye for now.